people who aren't even necessarily in financial trouble to begin with. I was all for helping the American people out, and I still am. But I never agreed with the fact that we need to be recklessly printing money to help our people who might want to decide to buy a third BMW this year. That is not what the
Never said I oppose fracking. Show the tape. Put it on your website. Put it on the website.
Live from Clark Studios in Rochester, New York. Broadcasting around the world. You're listening to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
The worst winter storm to ever hit Texas happened over a week ago. I mean, it was diabolical. Catastrophically destroyed and crippled the entire state, nearly beyond repair. People died. They were without heat and energy for weeks. And there's no sight of Joe Biden. He's the president of the United States. And it was only up until 1 hour ago that we even saw him step 1 foot down in the state of Texas. Why? What has Joe Biden been so deathly scared of that he only decided right now to go down to Texas? Could you imagine if that was Trump? Could you imagine if Trump didn't make his way down to Texas, where people died, where they experienced tens of millions without power? This was a Category 5 catastrophe for the states. If Trump didn't get his butt down there within 5 seconds, we would have seen the end of him. But Joe Biden is able to take his sweet old time. For whatever reason, him and Kamala Harris obviously don't think Texans are worth traveling to pay a visit to. So it's now 80 degrees down there. The state's pretty much back to normal. And Joe Biden finally, 1 hour ago, lands in the Lone Star State. Let's head over to Fox News and see what they have to say about the insanity of the president of the United States only just getting down there today, over a week later, when pretty much everything's back to normal. And it doesn't even matter at this point. So President Joe Biden only just lands in Texas. Like, bro, it happened over a week ago. Like, they're fine now. The power's pretty much back on. I mean, we saw Ted Cruz take more of a beating than we did Joe Biden. Ted Cruz leaves for literally not even 24 hours. He does a quick turnaround, drops his daughters and family off down in, I don't remember where they went. It was Cancun, somewhere south. And he gets an absolute beating for it. I mean, raked through the coals. How dare Ted Cruz takes his kids down for vacation, or drops his kids and wife off down south and comes right back. But we hear nothing of Joe Biden. We hear nothing about the fact that the president of the United States, the people's president, remember, the unifying president for all, no sign of him. So he finally makes his way down to Texas and lands an hour ago. There we can see him. Well, we don't even see him, actually. Notice how we don't really see the full picture of Air Force One. What's going on there? A lot of people even question if that even is Air Force One. I'm starting to have my doubts myself, because the only time I ever see a picture of Joe Biden boarding Air Force One is like a picture of the plane with the door open. You'd think you'd see Biden on the steps, waving to the press, boarding the plane, doing something to highlight the fact that I'm the president and this is my awesome Air Force One jet that I get to cruise around the world on. But there's nothing. Oh, actually, there we go. We finally see him come out. I still have my doubts as to whether that's Air Force One. It did take him quite a while. Maybe they're trying to get the stage just right. So we see Biden and Dr. Jill landing in Texas. Here they come, finally, to greet people who have been out of power for over a week. So he's down there in Texas, finally paying his respects. And I'm going to show you guys a clip in just a minute. I really don't think Joe's that with it. He's starting to go downhill fast. He's slow. As you can see here, he's kind of almost in a daze. He doesn't really know what's going on. And that's what we've seen from Joe lately over the last couple of weeks. I mean, we all knew his health was rapidly declining. We all knew he was going downhill. They're not admitting it, but we can certainly see it. I mean, we're not stupid. He's live on television for the world to see. He can't really sing a sentence together. And he just kind of mopes around before he retires early for the night around 7:30, probably the latest. So here he is again, moping around, finally on the ground, not really having much of a clue as to what's going on. But he's there. And before we get into the comments, I want to show you just how out of it Joe Biden really is. Let's take a look at another video of Joe Biden meeting with Texans and just how out of it he is. So here's President Joe Biden touring the Harris County Emergency Operations Center in Houston, Texas. This is pretty sad to see, honestly. Let's have a listen.
This has been our home away from home. Over fires.
So he's kind of just staring off into the abyss.
And now this winter weather event. These folks are the tip of the spear.
Looking around, trying to figure out, pointing at, he doesn't even know who.
Sleeping on the floor.
Where am I?
With their
I'm confused.
Power or water, not being able to reach them.
I don't even know who this girl is. I'm listening to. What state am I in?
They worked tirelessly for a year. And I think the most beautiful thing is we see the Congressional Delegation Center coordinate, of course.
And they're just going to kind of let her talk for a while. I think that's what the plan was.
The state government, the local
She just continues to talk and talk and talk. And I think they told Joe, you know what? You got to go down to Texas. We got to put on a show. But don't say anything because it's a dead giveaway that something's really wrong here. So let's go back. I'm going to unmute it, and she's still talking.
Thank you for what you're doing. And all I did,
Here's Joe now, finally.
Before he asked the question, I just said yes.
He did. He said yes before he even asked the question.
But you're really and truly, you're saving people's lives, and you're doing, as my mother would say, you're doing God's work, kid. You're doing God's work. Thank you.
Mr. President, we have a quick briefing from you. So, of course, Mayor Turner.
So that was his big speech. You're doing God's work. You're doing God's work, as my mother would say. That's it. That's all we really see. And the crazy thing about this whole thing is I can't find anything about it on CNN. I mean, the only thing I can find on Fox News right now is, and I knew Fox would play anything they possibly could get their hands on. The only thing that they play is Joe standing in this room with everybody talking but Joe. He's kind of looking around aimlessly, doesn't really know what's going on. He says about a sentence, maybe two. You know, you'd think for the President of the United States, there'd be a big pep talk, a big speech. You know, sorry I didn't get my butt down here 7 days ago. But we were kind of busy getting ready to move Kamala into the presidency because I'm really starting to lose it now. Just yesterday, the Democrats even suggested that they take the nuclear codes away from me. But anyway, that's a whole nother issue. We digress. So he's down here. Again, he's not talking. He's just kind of staring. He's listening to everybody. I'll unmute it again, and we'll see that he's still not talking.
We had over 1.5 million
This is just
people
another guy
without
explaining
power.
to Biden
without
what's going
power
on.
Meant that there was no heat. And that crisis created a new problem for us because we lost water supply. Without power, the water lines froze, and we had approximately 3.
So we don't need to listen to that guy. He continues on. He talks and talks and talks. Biden just stands there. He stares. And I still don't think he really knows what's going on. It's the writing's on the wall. It's very apparent something's not right with Joe Biden. I mean, we've seen it over the last month, but what's going on in just the last week? We haven't really heard from him much. And where's Kamala Harris? We haven't seen much of Kamala. Is she getting primed? Is she getting ready to take over? I mean, what's going on? It's you'd think the blind was leading the blind over in Washington right now. There's just not much action. And then yesterday, we see Matt Gaetz on Tucker Carlson last night talking about how the Democrats are actually considering taking away the nuclear codes from Biden. These are the Democrats now suggesting it. That has to raise some serious red flags. What do the Democrats know about Joe Biden's health, about his mental capacity that we don't know? What are they not telling us? Because something's going on. Are they getting ready to move Kamala Harris into the presidency role? Does that mean Nancy Pelosi's now up for VP? I mean, the world's already twisted as it is. It's already on the brinks of collapse. Can you imagine Kamala Harris as president with Nancy Pelosi as VP for the next nearly 4 years? This is really getting scary, guys. And when I see videos of Joe finally making his way to Texas and just kind of standing there, not really know what's going on or where he is, it makes me very concerned. And here's what's even more concerning. Let's head over to CNN for a minute. I pulled up CNN, and funny enough, the very first article, and I'm going to scroll right to the way to the top so you guys know I'm at the very top here. At the very top, of course, the first article on CNN is not about Biden going to Texas. You'd think it would be. The president of the United States literally just lands in a disaster area where millions of people were without power, where people died, the power grid has been shattered, and they're desperately all trying to scramble to get life back to normal. You'd think that'd be the number one story. It's not. What is? CPAC down in Orlando, Florida. I mean, these guys can't get enough of Trump. They love us. Let's be honest. Democrats, you secretly admire Trump. You don't even have to tell me. I know you do, because the media and you, all you do is talk about Trump. And we can see here, they're talking about CPAC and, look, the outrageously gold statue of Donald Trump wearing shorts and flip-flops, which, to be honest, I freaking love. That's the entrance to CPAC. It's Donald Trump in a golden statue of Donald Trump wearing flip-flops and shorts. If this doesn't tell you he's our boy for 2024, then you're obviously not looking at the clues hard enough. I wouldn't be surprised, and I hope, I'm kind of going out on a limb here, but I really hope Trump announces that he's going to run 2024 Sunday as he closes out CPAC down in Orlando, Florida. He's the headliner. He's the main event. He's going to close the show out Sunday, 3:45, I believe. We'll be streaming it live from our studio here, so I'll make sure you guys don't miss it. But who knows? Maybe he'll announce it. Look at even Mitch McConnell. My own team put an article out this morning on You Made It Political's Facebook business page, and there's an article there of Mitch McConnell now saying and admitting, I will absolutely back Trump. Mitch McConnell himself has done a 180 since Trump slammed him with that press statement over a week ago. So Mitch McConnell, as we know, has been bashing Trump. Trump decides to come out, slams Mitch McConnell right back with a press statement that says, no, this is all your fault. You're the reason the GOP is divided. Stop putting the blame on me. And Lindsey Graham then says, you're right. We don't have a snowball's chance in hell of winning the Senate without Trump's involvement. And now Mitch McConnell has come out just yesterday. He said to Fox News, I will absolutely support Trump as the Republican nominee if he decides to go for it in 2024. What a 180 he just pulled. It's got to tell you something. And now we have CPAC's entrance. Here's CNN reporting because, look, they have nothing else to report. So let me scroll down and show you guys. You'd think Joe Biden would be right up at the top. He just got down to Texas. He's their boy. right? You'd think he'd be plastered all over the front page of CNN. Let's scroll down and see what we got here. Nope, just some American economy stuff. Some mother in Texas talking about her tragic story, sadly in Texas. And we got some overseas breaking news. We now talk about some princes over in the UAE. The Saudi crown prince is making headlines. Where is Joe Biden? Look it. I'm scrolling. More talk of the stimulus bill. Nope, still no sign of Joe. We're talking about scams, unemployment benefits. Oh, French bulldogs are even above Joe Biden down in Texas. Now we got Marines. We've got talk of Navy ships. Full moons even make headlines above Joe Biden being in Texas on CNN. A middle schooler getting a haircut. I mean, CNN is not showing Biden in Texas for a reason. Because something is drastically wrong. They don't want to show Biden. Prince Harry has made the headlines above Joe Biden in Texas. Look, I've been scrolling article after article. Well, Vincent van Gogh paintings make a headline above Joe Biden. I still haven't found anything. Oh, look, even Trump himself. Again, Trump. Tiger Woods. I can scroll and scroll and scroll. I've shown you. I've been scrolling from the very top. Joe Biden landed in Texas an hour ago. I've scrolled through CNN's headlines on their social media page, and I can't find anything that shows us a good video of Biden talking to the Texans. You know what? Not to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but is he really in Texas? I don't know. The only thing we saw is him walking down Air Force One when he finally did make it out. Took him a while. We were kind of watching the video for 2 minutes before he finally came out the door. And then we see him in this room here. And that's all we can find. So the whole thing is very, very suspicious. And it kind of makes me wonder what's going on here. It's very bizarre. Let's head back to the keyboard warrior cam and see what the American people have to say about Joe Biden finally making his way to Texas, if that's even where he really is. First comment, is that Air Force One? A lot of people question whether that is in fact Air Force One. Penny says, it took you 6 days to address Texas. Go back to where you came from. I missed my President Trump, the best president ever. And you're going to see this over and over again. You're going to see how many people just don't really want Biden to even be down there in the first place. Joe Biden is a joke. It needs to be removed, says James Barker. Amber says, continue to watch over President Biden and his safe travels as well as over all of the world. Awesome Father, in your sweet and holy name. Amen. So we obviously have a Biden lover. And okay, fine, Amber, you're right. We do need to kind of continue to watch over President Biden because his health is rapidly deteriorating. And from what we've seen, he can barely string a sentence together. He looks dazed and confused. I haven't heard him really give a speech since his inauguration for more than, a minute or two. So, yeah, I guess it is time for prayers, Amber. Amber, a different Amber, then says, we don't want him in Texas. We survived our winter storm without him because we are humans and help our neighbors. He doesn't give two shits. And his actions speak louder than words. It's been a week since the storm. And all we kept hearing was Biden plans on getting there midweek. Biden plans on heading down. What do you mean plans? Get in your freaking Air Force One and get down to Texas. And if you can't get Air Force One for whatever reason, get in your car, drive, take a train. I don't care how you get down there. You should have been down in Texas. What president would not have been down on the ground? And I love the excuse they came up with. They came up with some stupid excuse like, we don't want to take away from what the emergency workers are trying to do. We don't want to distract them. What about Ted Cruz? Then why was everybody screaming and yelling at Ted Cruz when he decided to step out for 5 seconds? So the Democrats and the Biden administration used the excuse of, well, we didn't want to get down there too early and distract the workers from the task at hand. But the second Ted Cruz goes away on a Saturday, by the way, on a Saturday, he gets raked through the coals. I mean, what do you want? Ted Cruz to actually go fix the power grid himself? I mean, what was Ted Cruz going to do on a Saturday? Was he going to go bring kerosene heaters to people's houses? He left for 24 hours. AOC was down there on the ground before Biden and Kamala. And I think there's a good reason for that. AOC, now that I think about it, she could have been the distraction the Biden administration needed to get out of why they weren't down there. So the whole thing looks very orchestrated. It reeks of Chuck and Nancy, who are probably maybe calling the shots on this whole thing. Somebody's calling the shots here. It's definitely not Biden. And when I saw Matt Gaetz on Tucker Carlson last night talking about why the Democrats aren't coming out with the real situation on his mental health. When are the American people going to finally hear about what's really going on? Because something's not right here. Let's head back to the keyboard warrior cam and see what the American people have to say about Joe Biden getting down to Texas a week after the incident. A little bit too late, Joe. It's like 80 degrees. I think they're back to the beach by now, and you're only just stepping foot down in Texas. Wyatt says, did he get lost? I didn't think he knew where Texas was. Well, with what we just saw and the way he walked out of that plane and the way that he kind of stared around the room listening to people speak, I still think he might be lost. Margaret says, please don't put your footprints on our great Texas soil. Go away. It's clear that they don't like, I mean, Texas is as red as it gets. You know, Florida, Texas, I mean, these are some hardcore red states. I mean, but Texas takes the cake. Texas is as red as it gets. We both know they're not big fans of the Biden administration. They love their guns. Their Second Amendment rights are being attacked. And it's funny because the bill, H.R. 127, which is probably the biggest threat of a bill we have ever seen against the Second Amendment, is coming from a Congress or a representative out of Texas, a Democrat representative. It's coming out with H.R. 127. So she can't be doing too well in Texas either. If you haven't looked it up, H.R. 127, take a look. I even have a live on it a few weeks ago. You're going to want to see that because our Second Amendment rights have never been in jeopardy the way they are today. They are under attack. It's criminal what they're trying to do to make it nearly impossible for people to get their hands on guns. Everything from you needing to tell the government where your guns are, how many you own, $800 fee per weapon per year, the size of caliber, bullet, and weapon are all going to be limited. It is a disgusting attack on our Second Amendment right, and that bill is coming from a representative down in Texas. So Biden's not too liked in Texas to begin with. We already know that. I mean, we don't need social media to tell us that. So was he scared? I mean, what was he worried about? Was there a security threat? Was he worried about, were they worried about his life? I don't know. But since George Bush, back in the Hurricane Katrina situation, made the horrible mistake of only flying over Katrina and kind of glancing down at it from above, That was the last time a president didn't get their ass down to a site immediately because they knew they'd experience the same type of backlash that George Bush Jr. achieved during Hurricane Katrina. So you'd think Biden wouldn't make the same mistake. But he did. He absolutely did. Majority of these reactions, says Brianna, are laughs and mad. Does that say something or what? Isn't that funny? Every single time I read a Biden or watch a Biden video on social media, it's all laugh emojis and angry emojis. There's never like a ton of likes and hearts and hugs and cuddle emojis. It's all laughs, LOLs, and angry emojis. Every single video I see. And it's all across America. Everywhere you look. So I'm really starting to question who actually voted for this guy. When every single press statement I see, when I see Psaki on, when I see Biden giving a statement, and that's only if he does last for more than 2-3 minutes. But still, it's all LOLs and angry emojis every single time. It does got to tell you something. We all know that nobody really voted for Biden, okay? You either voted for Trump or you voted against Trump, but you didn't vote for Biden. Nobody shows up to see him talk. Nobody shows up or on his social media posts. Nobody really cares. Nobody's gung-ho for Biden. Everybody knows that, and I don't think anybody is for Kamala Harris either. So God forbid she actually does get moved up into presidency after he gets let go by Pelosi in the 25th. I don't think we're going to see much of a difference from Kamala Harris either. It's going to be the worst thing, even worse than Sleepy Joe, to happen to America. Because we're going to go from a president that nobody really wants to a vice president now moving in that has no idea what she's doing. I mean, the whole thing's just going to be an absolute catastrophic mess. Can you imagine Harris trying to deal with COVID? I mean, Biden can't deal with COVID. He's already come out and said, well, there's not much we can do to change the trajectory of COVID, even though his entire presidential bid was run off the fact that he was going to curb COVID and they were going to kill this pandemic and stop it dead in its tracks. Now all we hear is mask up with 3 masks, and we're probably going to need to wear these stupid masks into 2022 because the vaccine not really working. At least that's what we're hearing out of Fauci, endorsed and backed by the Biden administration. So he's in Texas, finally, a week later, and nobody cares. It's too little, too late. And the media, this is the worst part. The media are giving him no backlash whatsoever. If this was Trump, can you imagine if this was Donald Trump? He would have been crucified. Donald Trump could have been in Texas the night before, by coincidence, when the storm hit. And he still would have gotten screamed at about something. He probably would have been blamed for it. That's how much the media hate this guy. Yet we see nothing from Joe. They're covering for him. I'm telling you right now, they are covering for Sleepy. Something's up. And it makes me even more nervous that I don't see Kamala Harris anywhere. She's been very quiet. There's something going on. Vivian says 245 counties in Texas without power and water, and he grants emergency declaration to 77? What a tool. That's why Texas will never be blue. I hope so. I really hope states like Texas, Tennessee, Florida, we already saw what happened to Georgia. I really hope these states stay red. I do, for America's sake. For all of the conservatives across the country, I hope we don't see these red states slowly start to succumb to the liberal insanity that's being rammed down the American throats right now. I'd like to see a few states hold their ground, hold the line. So for those of us who live in these blue states, New York, California, we have somewhere to go when we've had enough. Belinda says, we have already taken care of our own, Biden. Get out of our state. Texas is fine without you. Does not sound like a lot of people down in Texas want him there. Probably the reason why he didn't go down for nearly a week later. Wake up, Joe, says Jill. We've landed in Houston, Texas. Time to change your diaper. And again, let's go back to this video for those of you who missed it. I'm going to go back and play it from the beginning here.
Home away from home, over fires, floods.
Joe's kind of standing around. He doesn't really know what's going
now
on.
This winter weather event. These folks
You got this
are the
lady
tip of the
here
spear
talking,
when it comes
and
to
he's just
fighting
kind of
for
gazing around,
communities.
pointing. I don't know what he's
They
pointing
have
at. I don't think Joe knows what he's pointing at. I don't think he knows where he is.
With their
If
families without power
it is
or
in fact
water, not
Texas.
being able to reach them, they were here every day and
So
night
she
last
continues to
week.
talk.
They
Joe
worked
continues to
tirelessly for a
stare.
year. And I think the most beautiful thing as we see
And I
the
think this whole thing was
Congressional
planned.
Delegation Center coordinate, of course,
She just goes on and talks for 7 good minutes. And we don't really hear any award-winning speech. No, we're with you. America's got your back. The only thing that comes out of his mouth
welcome you with pride
is this.
to our Emergency Operations Center for every.
I'll let you guys
Hell of an
listen.
operation. Yeah, it's probably the best one in the country. It's a simple place. But thank you for what you're doing. And all I did, I got a call before he asked the question. I just said yes.
He did.
He said, before I got the call and even knew what the question was, I said yes. I don't even know what he's talking about there. That's what he just said to that gentleman on the ground. He said, thank you guys very much. Before I even got the call and knew the question, I said yes. I didn't hear anybody even talk about a question. And then he goes on to say,
Before you even ask the question.
But you're really in truth. You're saving people's lives, and you're doing, as my mother would say, you're doing God's work, kid. You're doing God's work.
as my mother would say, you're doing God's work, you're doing God's work. And that's all we heard. And then it goes back to another 7 or another 6 minutes or so of everybody kind of talking to Joe. And he just stares around aimlessly. It's very, very sad what's going on right now. Let's see what the American people have to say on this video and see if they too catch that Joe Biden's all just not that with it down there in Texas. More go away. We don't want you here. You purposely left us cold and jobless, allowing open borders with no C-19 or criminal background measures with catch and release. That's very true. Their priority over the last week was to let in illegal immigrants. That's what the Biden administration's focus has been. They've been more concerned with letting in 300 asylum seekers per day than they have been with Texans. Texans are freezing to death. They're starving. They have no food. They have no water. And the Biden's administration's biggest concern is making sure that the Texans border remain open so the illegal immigrants and the asylum seekers can continue to come in. It is absolute insanity, and it makes me question who's really running the show here and what are their motives, because everything about this reeks of America last mentality, and it's almost as if they're doing it on purpose. How dare he says he's doing God's work. Murder of babies in 3rd trimester, clearly referring to supporting pro-abortion. Terry says Biden only in office a few weeks already and the worst supposed president ever. Jeff says tens of people showed up. Is it his nap time yet? He is only a week late. While you're there, go to the border and see the crisis you have created. There's a huge crisis down in Texas. Biden's actually set up in Texas what's now being called Tent City. Texans are sleeping in ditches. They're sleeping in ditches. They have, and these are not Texans, illegal immigrants are sleeping in ditches and in sanitary conditions, getting ready to cross the border and stay in America illegally while their asylum applications are pending. No COVID test, by the way. No social distancing. I've seen pictures. No masks. They're coming in by the hundreds. We can't even travel without paying $120 for a COVID test in a different state once we land there. We have to pay to get tested. Do you think the asylum seekers have $120 to get COVID tested? I don't think so. And guess what? Nobody cares. They're not even going to ask them to. It is corruption and hypocrisy at an all-time high. And it's getting worse. Every single day it's getting worse. I mean, this administration, if I didn't know any better, I think I was in a bad dream where Communist Party came in from China and took over and held us all hostage. I mean, this is their actions right now. They reek of communism. And if I didn't know any better, I'd think America was hijacked at this point. I really would. Nothing seems to make sense. And now the Democrats want to take away the nuclear codes. They want to take away power from Joe Biden having access to the nuclear codes, which is now raising very grave concern from both Republicans and Democrats as to what's really going on behind the scenes. So clearly there's a big problem. Joe makes it a week late down to Texas. Nobody wants him there. We're trying to understand what he was so scared about in the first place. Why didn't he get down there quicker? And is there a health issue here that is so rapidly declining that Kamala Harris is now being primed to get ready to move up? How long do you think we have before Kamala takes control? How many months do you think we have? At first I thought we'd at least make it a year. I don't even think we have 6 months at this point. I really don't. After everything I've read in the news, after everything I've seen, I don't think we have even 6 months before Biden's out. I think he is already at a very critical stage. I think just in the last month since he took office, I think he's shown some serious rapid decline in health. We don't know. Maybe he was already there before he even took office. Maybe he was already in a bad state, and now maybe it's just getting 10 times worse. Howard says, who cares? On the Trump train 2024, President Trump is still my favorite president. MAGA. Carol says, this man was not elected. He is an illegitimate resident of the White House. The elected president is a victim of a coup. This ain't over. Look what's going down in CPAC right now in Orlando, Florida. Look at all the love for President Trump. It's amazing to see. I mean, it might as well have been renamed Trump Convention. Or See Trump. Because every single person who's coming out and speak, if you haven't listened to them, I've put a few of the live streams up on our fan page. You can go and check them out. We've got Matt Gaetz speaking. We've got Charlie Kirk. We got Ted Cruz earlier. We got George DeSantis. We captured all of them speaking. So if you haven't seen any of them talk yet, go ahead and check them out. You'll see them on our Facebook fan page. The lives recorded from earlier today. I believe Trump Jr. is about to speak soon, and Josh Hawley as well, if they haven't already. So much action down in Florida right now. God, I wish I was there. I'm killing myself for not being there. Trump, the main headline, he is going to be speaking Sunday, 3:45, and I wouldn't be surprised if Trump himself announced that he's running for president 2024. I think he's going to drop a political bomb. Look what everything's that happened in just the last 2 weeks. Trump left office. He went into hiding for a few days. A poll then comes out saying 3 out of 4 Republicans want Trump to play a major role. Mitch McConnell then slams him. He comes fighting back against Mitch with a press release statement. bitch slapping Mitch down, putting him in his place. Patriots got on board and say, we want you back in. Lindsey Graham says, I want you back in. And then guess what? Mitch McConnell himself does a 180 and says just yesterday on Fox News, I absolutely want to see Trump as a front runner, and I will back him if he makes it that far. So you never know. He may just announce at Sunday. Thanks, guys, for watching. We'll see you next week. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks for listening to You Made It Political with Matt Clark. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show, or leave us a review on iTunes. And if you like our show or want to know more, check out YouMadeItPolitical.com.